Hey folks, Jordan with the Young Turks and TYT Politics. Hope you're doing well on this Monday. Wanted to talk to you about the breaking news that President Trump, his travel ban for the first time will be enforced at least partially. So that is because the Supreme Court today announced that they will hear the case in full in October. So let me read to you a little bit about this. Let me also get a little better lighting. Hold on. Ba-da-ding. All right. There we go. So let me see if you could. Yeah, that's not good either. Hold on. Internet, baby. Hey. So the Supreme Court agreed on Monday to allow a limited version of President Trump's travel ban on travelers from 6 mostly Muslim countries to take effect, and will consider in the fall the president's broad powers in immigration matters in a case that raises fundamental issues of national security and religious discrimination. The court made an important exception. It said the ban may be enforced against foreign nationals who have a credible claim of bona fide relationship with a person or entity in the United States. Whatever the hell that means. Let me read that to you one more time. The court made an important exception. It said the ban may not be enforced against foreign nationals who have a credible claim of bona fide relationship with a person or entity in the United States. In the unsigned opinion, the court said that a foreign national who wants to visit or live with a family member would have such a relationship, and so would students from the designated countries, Libya, Iran, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen, who are admitted to an American university. So basically, if you have a family member in America and you're from one of those countries, Libya, Iran, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen, or you're a student from one of those countries, you would not be affected. If you do not have a bona fide relationship with a person or entity in the United States, you would not be admitted. So that's kind of a slippery slope. I think there is kind of gray areas in terms of bona fide relationships. I mean, okay, if you're a family member, how does that affect if you're an adopted child or sibling? How does that affect if you're not a registered student, but you are an interested person in going to schools in the United States and you're going from abroad to view the school? For example, I went to school at the University of Tampa in Florida. 25% of the school was foreign and international students. So if you're not currently registered, would you not be able to come and see the school? The court said it will hear the case when it reconvenes in October. Today is actually the last day of session for the Supreme Court, but it also indicated in the ruling that things may change dramatically by then. It asked the parties to address whether the case would be moot by the time it hears it. The ban is supposed to be a temporary one while the government reviews its vetting procedures. And the justices said they, quote, fully expect the government to be able to conduct its review within the 90-day span the executive order proposes. That affects the ban on travel from the 6 countries and a 120-day ban on all refugees entering the United States, with the exception noted by the court. Trump said last week the ban would go into effect 72 hours after receiving an approval from the courts. Justices Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, and Neil Gorsuch would have let the ban take effect as written and objected to what they called the court's compromise. Well, no shocker there. Clarence Thomas has never been against a radical conservative measure. Samuel Alito, same thing. And new extremists to the court, Neil Gorsuch, all, if it were up to them, would have put the travel ban in place 100%. A partial stay will, quote, burden executive officials with the task of deciding on peril of contempt whether individuals from the 6 affected nations who wish to enter the United States have a sufficient connection to a person or entity in this country, wrote Justice Clarence Thomas, who was joined by Alito and Gorsuch. Such a compromise, the justices said, will lead to a, quote, flood of litigation over what constitutes a, quote, bona fide relationship before the overall case is resolved after oral argument in the fall. They added that the court has made a, quote, implicit conclusion that the administration will prevail. The proposed travel ban has been a major point of contention. We know this, so I won't read the rest. So basically, the ban will go in place unless you have a bona fide relationship, meaning you're a family member or you're a student. So this is not a small thing. This is a big deal. So if you're somebody from one of those countries and you just want to come to the United States for vacation, for business, whatever, you are going to have a tough time doing it, and you're going to have to demonstrate a bona fide relationship. Again, it seems that the court is saying you don't have a bona fide relationship unless you have family or you're a student. It said the ban may not be enforced against foreign nationals who have a credible claim of a bona fide relationship. Foreign nationals who want to visit or live with a family member would have such a relationship, and with students. So you're basically getting rid of the chance for somebody to come on vacation, so tourism to the United States. You're getting rid of people to come on business, political, all those things. I wonder if this will apply to people who want to come stay at Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C., or New York, or his hotels around the country. Will be interesting. So what do I think? Number one, this is obvious. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is a bad thing. This is one of the threats that we all knew when President Trump would come into office. I don't regret my coverage. I don't regret critically covering Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party. I think that was the right thing to do. However, we got to call this what it is. It is dangerous. This is not what America should stand for. We are supposed to be an inclusive society. We are supposed to be a mixed bowl of cultures and ethnicity. As I've said in videos, as I've said in writing, I think Trump as a candidate and now president has done a brilliant job of scapegoating the other, Mexicans, Muslims, and all other groups that don't look like me or a lot of you, as they are the reason you're poor. They are the reason your jobs have been stolen. They are the reason that you haven't been able to get a raise in 20 years. They are the reason you're not safe. It's scapegoating. It's also a form of gaslighting. As I've told you over and over again, as I've told you in my book, which if you're not reading it, what are you doing? Go to corporateconjob.com, corporateconjob.com. I discussed this at length in chapter 1, which is about how the media burned down Bernie's campaign. But they essentially, the corporate Democratic establishment and extremist conservatives have basically caused you to lose your jobs, lose your pensions, lose your retirements, not get a raise in 20 years, in some cases, lose your middle class existence and become the working poor. And after doing all this, and by the way, they have been the ones that have caused the endless wars and bolstered and created the ISISes, emboldened the Al-Qaedas. They are the ones who have made you unsafe. Yes, are there certain criminals that come from Mexico or Arab countries? Of course. There's also criminals that come from Paris or London or Israel, or there's criminals all over the place. Can't generalize entire religions. And by the way, what this does, because the United States government and the CIA and the FBI, they're only capable of short-term thinking. So they are all about, how do we stomp out ISIS now? How do we stamp out the foreign terrorism now? And they don't care that when you drop bombs endlessly, when you kill innocent civilians, you're just perpetuating terrorism in perpetuity. And you're creating more terrorism because you and I, if our schools got blown up, if our homes got blown up, if our families, if our friends were killed, I think we'd want revenge. But in regards to this, I think this is a terrible thing, what Trump is doing. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. However, I also want to look at the opportunity. So, in conjunction with the Senate health care bill that they're trying to ram through, which is wildly unpopular, Trump's approval rating has dropped to 38%. Just 38% of Americans now say they approve of the job the president is doing in office, a drop of 4 points in just 3 days, according to the latest Gallup survey. So, I think what you're going to see in response to this travel ban partially going into place, if you thought there were protests in the beginning of the Trump administration, you saw the protests outside Trump Tower in New York. You've seen protests in D.C. and other cities. You saw it across the country, the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast. Let me tell you something. that ain't nothing compared to what you're going to start seeing now, especially over the summer. I think you're going to see a mix of protest, not only in conjunction with this partial ban going into effect, but all the police cases we're now seeing. You saw Philando Castile's murderer acquitted. Now you see another African-American woman in this case, Charlene Lyles in Seattle, a 30-year-old mother, called the police because there was an intruder and she was killed within 30 seconds by police who claimed she had a knife and just shot her. And if you listen to that audio, it went from calm, cool to killing her in front of her 3 children within 30 seconds. So I think this summer, I'm not fear-mongering, I'm not calling for any action, but I'm just telling you what I think is going to happen. I think you're going to see levels of protest you probably haven't seen in many years in this country, because the actual progressive, capital P progressives, are emboldened and energized, and they're not going to stand for this. Sure, there's more centrist, neoliberal Democrats who are part of the resistance and all that. In this case, we got to take everybody we can get, whether it's progressives, whether it's centrist people, even Republicans who won't stand for this. Because we can do 2 things at once. We could fight political and financial corruption, which I'm fighting every day against centrist and neoliberal Democrats. But we also have to fight hate and xenophobia and racism. Gotta walk and chew gum at the same time, as they say. So I will be covering as many of these protests as humanly possible. And for those who say, well, Trump keeps winning, I don't think a 38% approval rating, which is the lowest approval rating for any president at this point in their presidency in American history. It's 45 presidents. I don't think, if you look at Montana, Rob Quist turned it around. Trump won 25 points, Montana. Rob Quist lost by 6 in a very, very Republican state. So I think that there are inroads being made. I think that there is movement to the progressive end. And by the way, if Trump's at 38% now, you start seeing wide-scale protests across the country, and the Supreme Court's not hearing this till October. And by the way, this is only supposed to be a temporary ban. It's very possible that Trump could declare victory right now, say, oh, we got some of it through. Then his approval ratings can plummet possibly into the 20s by October. Then you're only a year before the midterm elections, governor races, this and that, and the Republican Party cannot attach itself with a president who, with an approval rating in the 20s, with protests every day across the country, with his xenophobic and bigoted policies. Then you might see some change. Then you might see Trump pull back. So this is politics too. Trump's not stupid, and the Republican Party, although they're hateful, isn't completely idiotic. They cannot attach itself to a president a year before the midterms who has approval ratings possibly teetering in the low 30s to high 20s with protests across the country. But don't just watch me and the Young Turks. You got to take action. Find out about nonviolent protests happening in your communities. Find out about what you could do to support immigrants, to support people affected disproportionately and negatively by this xenophobic and racist ban. Because it's not going to be people like me. It's going to be people with different skin colors, with different accents, and people who, through no fault of their own, have no ill will towards America. This is not how you keep the country safe. And this is not how you make friends around the world. This is how you create hate towards our country, in addition to dropping bombs endlessly. So, obviously continue watching. We'll cover the after effects of this. If you haven't seen, last week I covered several protests in New York City. One was for Philando Castile, another one was for Charlene Lyles. I'm actually in Miami this week, a little work, a little fun. So definitely follow me at Jordan Sheridan. And again, check out chapter 1, and the introduction of my book is out now, corporateconjab.com. You could download it, donate if you please. Thank you for watching, and I will probably be back later today with a different video. Bernie Sanders and Jane Sanders are under investigation by the FBI. Kind of smell bullshit on this. What do you think? Come back later.